I tell every class that I teach that I can think of that every decision I would have done differently is because the information I got was either incomplete or inaccurate. And there's a huge inaccuracy in the information that I was disseminated as a child and a youth that I think needs to change in order to help young men have better prospects in the future. Um, the simple fact of the matter is that the world does not reward virtue. I grew up, learned a little bit about Sir Thomas More, who was executed by King Henry VIII for refusing to sign a document saying that he approved of the king's decision to divorce his wife and marry Anne Boleyn. He told the Duke of Norfolk, although in a letter rather than in person in the movie, when we die and I am sent to hell for disobeying my conscience and you are sent to heaven for following yours, will you come with me for fellowship? The simple fact of the matter is that in order, we have a difference between good advice and successful advice. In the movie, Sir Thomas More gives both good and successful advice. He advises that Richard Rich, rather than going into court and being subject to the proclivities and the malversation that accompanies court life, that he should become a teacher. And if he had, he would have made a difference, although not on the scope and scale for which he has become known after the fact. So he had a more successful life for himself and his descendants. He also is the one who gave false testimony on which Sir Thomas More was executed. So, had he followed that advice, Thomas More's life might have turned out differently too. When we're talking to young men, we need to give them a mixture of both good advice and successful advice. I am not opposed to encouraging that men become good men, virtuous men, men of morality and character. I do, however, think that if we focus just on that, we handicap the men and leave them even less able to navigate the uncertain waters of the modern world, particularly when it comes to vocation and relationships. A lot of people are told to just be themselves. And while this is a good advice, it is not always the best advice. You would not want certain people to be themselves. No one would tell Mr. Mustache to just be himself and think that was good advice. Because although there might be virtues in Mr. Mustache, everyone who knows who Mr. Mustache is knows that Mr. Mustache was not a good man, but he was a very successful one. So the trick is to teach young men to become good and to become successful. So what do we do about that? It is very clear that this is the problem with vocation. I learned a lot of things. I'm a very learned and educated individual. I have not had the unbroken success that people might have expected from me as the valedictorian of my graduating class for one very simple reason. Number one, nobody cares what you know unless you also know the right people. So it is important to not only know the material, but also to make friends with the people who can help you rise in might. Because if you know these things and you don't know the right people, you're not going anywhere. The college I work at just got a new vice president of academic affairs, and I don't know all the story, but I do know that his background is that he's a former coach. And every one of us knows that coaches don't make the best teachers and that athletes don't make the best students. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule, except for this one. But I do have to ask, how did he get there? Because it is not for his demonstrable achievements or his acumen. I suspect it's because he knows the college president or the board of regents or somebody owes him a favor. And that's the way the world really works. You can get all the learning that you want. You can acquire all of the facts and skills possible. And if you know the wrong people, you may still have a Richard Rich who bears false witness and either tanks your career or costs you your life. Loose lips sink ships. And if you're not sidling up to the right people, you might end up without any people to spend any time with at all. History is replete with people who made the wrong associations. Benedict Arnold, who sidled up to the British, is a very good example of making the wrong friends. Now, if he'd been successful, we'd be seeing a different story. So you have to be very careful in who you surround yourself with. And we need to teach them not just to find friends who share their values, but people who share their vision of where they want to end up. Because can you be a good person in a wicked world? Yes. Can you be a good person at the top of an organization in the wicked world? Yes. Are you going to be there that way for very long? Maybe not. But Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is only fictitious because that's not happened, not because it can't. It's just unlikely because Mr. Smith in the movie has focused on all the virtuous things and is chosen at random because of political reasons that he would otherwise never have been even noticed, because he was also only 30. At my age, I'm outspoken enough now that no one's ever going to pick me to lead anything, except for maybe a laundry detail, because they know, and I'm on the record as having very strong opinions about things that are antithetical to the status quo of most leadership organizations. And like it or not, most organizations venerate the status quo. So if you're not a go-along to get along person or a go-along to get ahead person, it won't matter what's going on in here. They won't pick you. Same thing is true in romance. It is important to be a good man because good men are the only ones worth keeping. Character is what matters most. But if you're a man of character and you don't have anything else, women won't care. I'm a really good example of that. At my very best, I was a 7 out of 10 on the look scale. And because I wasn't what they wanted, they weren't willing to entertain me as an opportunity and an option. And instead, we all know, we went through high school looking at them choose men who used and abused them. It wasn't that they were choosing. It was those were the ones who were perceived as the creme de la creme. And all the women are swooning to go hang on his arm, go with him to the prom, be his girl, whatever the case may be. And all the girls were competing for those men. And those men, what we noticed is those men treated them poorly. The men weren't treating them poorly because that's what the women wanted. The women were treated poorly because the men knew they were the men the women wanted, and they could get away with treating women poorly. I'm not a proponent for treating women poorly. I am a proponent for this. You need to become the kind of man that women want. Women don't give a flying flapjack about how many languages you speak, how many dance moves that you know, how many books you can recite from memory. They don't care about your character, your morality, your adherence to the Scout law or Scout oath, unless you are also someone they find attractive. And attractive is a broad term. I'm not just talking about your physique. I'm talking about somebody that they would want to be with. They want those guys to have those things, but they don't want guys who have those things unless they're also attractive. That's the part they never say out loud, is you also have to be someone they find attractive. I get told all the time, when I travel especially, how surprised people are that I'm not married. And I'm like, I'm not attractive. And they're like, sure you are. And I'm like, no, I'm not. If I was attractive, women would be chasing after me. That's what it is. We all saw that in high school. The attractive men were the ones all the girls wanted to be with. The unattractive men were the ones they tolerated. I've been tolerated my whole life. But women do not chase me. And so you can call me whatever you want. I know I'm not attractive enough because if you're attractive, women will chase after you. And I don't necessarily mean they're going to ask you out, but they're going to be hanging out around you all the time. And if they're not hanging out around you all the time, you're the backup plan at best. And you're probably the court of last resort. So how do you become somebody they want? You need to do things they care about, even if you don't care. You need to work out. You need to play the right sport. Tennis is not the right sport. Golf is not the right sport. Okay, Tiger Woods is the only attractive golfer in my whole life that I can think of. You need to have the right job. Doctor, lawyer, not professor, not PhD. They don't give two shakes of a donkey's tail about those things. So you need to find something you want to do that is a career they want to marry a man who does. And you got to live in the right part of town, drive the right car, wear the right brands, or, as I do, you could just not care. I'll talk about that more in my book. Because I want guys to be successful. We need to give them a combination of good advice and successful advice. And I'm not saying to compromise and become somebody that you're not. I'm saying to find something in the realm of possibility for the things you would otherwise already do, and do the thing that gives you the most appeal to those you are trying to attract. They tell you all the time, and this is a lie, that you shouldn't care what people think about you. There are times when that's true, and there are things you shouldn't care about, but there are a couple of times where it does matter what people think. If you want to get a job, you need to care what people think. If you want to get a spouse, you better care what women think. Or you're not going to get one. If you end up not caring what other people think and just doing yourself and being you and drinking Dr. Pepper, nothing wrong with that, you're going to end up like me. Is that a bad thing? No. And I'm not going to tell you why. I'm just going to tell you that I'm doing far better than my ex-wife would ever have suspected that I would be doing, because I stayed true to myself. And I have some coworkers who look at me who have sold their soul for advancement. And although they've advanced further than I have, I know some of them look at me and think, gee, he has advanced too. Could I have not sold my soul and would I have still advanced? Maybe. I have. So you don't have to compromise who you really are in order to get ahead. But in order to have the best prospects, you need to look at what you can do within the realm of your true self that will advance you in the eyes of others. So, find things you are willing to do that will put you together with the people whose opinion matters to you. Find a career that you like, that they find appealing. Find activities to do that you like, that they find appealing. Find associations with people that share your vision so that you can have a life that is appealing and that you offer appeal to them. Because at the bottom of the day, there's one fundamental principle that is overarching, whether we're talking about the world or man or God or anything, and that is that everything operates on this principle from Stephen R. Covey. Win-win or no deal. So you need to offer them a win, and you have to offer them something they care about. They do not care if you have the best score on Donkey Kong, whatever that is. They don't care if you speak the most languages of anyone else. They don't care if you have friends in Italy and you've been there 4 times. Unless those friends are the right friends and you're going to invite them and pay for them, which I'm not. So they don't care about that. You have to offer them a win-win or you're not going to get a deal. Now, the problem is that everyone wants to be accepted as they are without having to return the favor. So you have to make a decision whether or not you care what they think enough to do things that you don't necessarily want to do. Because you're going to have to do stuff that you don't want to do anyway as an adult. And don't say you have to compromise who you are. If you're playing a sport already, switch to a sport they care about. Move from tennis to lacrosse. Move from water polo to basketball, whatever it takes to move into one that gives you the visibility and the clout where they will care. If your hobbies are stamp collecting and Warhammer 40K, whatever that is, you need to adopt hobbies that they care about. If you play an instrument, you need to play the guitar. And you need to play songs on the guitar that women want to sing. Because I play the guitar and they don't care. Because I don't play what they want to play. They're not impressed. Adults are, children are, dateable women don't care. And if you want to have the right job and have vocational opportunities for advancement, then you need to make friends with people who are in positions to move you up. That doesn't mean you sell your soul, but you may have to stick yourself out there in places you haven't. I wish someone had been willing to sit me down and explain that to me 25 years ago. I'm not doing badly, but I could have been doing better. If I had known these things, I would have had more options. And that's what I want to give you. You'll be able to make better decisions if the information you have is fuller and if it's accurate. And these are accurate and fuller pieces of information. I hate to say that's how it is, but it is not what I was told. And it's not because I was told it by women. Although that's what women are singing. You just need to listen to women. No. I was told this by men, and I was told this by the church, that what was most important was to become a righteous and worthy man so that I would be picked as a husband and a father. And I can tell you right now, I haven't met a single woman in my entire life who said she chose her husband for his great faith and strong testimony. Modern women don't care about that, except for this one last story. I had a friend who's now dead, who the last time I saw her got slovenly drunk and told me that she wished she could find a guy like me. And I said, that's the most offensive thing I've ever been told. And she sobered up real quickly and said, why? And I said, because I'm like me. but you would not date me unless I was the last man on earth. What you actually mean is you want the guys you date to be like me, but they don't have to because you already like them. But you wouldn't date me come hell or high water. To her credit, she did not argue with me. Unfortunately, 4 months later, she was murdered. And I think a lot of people find out too late, like I have, about what they could have done to increase their options. So if you want to have better job prospects and better dating prospects, then the choices you make have to be ones that you're willing to make that other people value. Because I'll tell you what, nobody cares. There are no women who care, who want to date me, who care about my stamp collection, my linguistic abilities, how many times I've been to Europe. They don't care. None of them care. They care about whether or not the things I have will increase their value. And that's what it's got to be. I struggled understanding win-win or no deal because the person who tried to teach it to me didn't understand it. And I'm hoping that if you understand how to give women a win-win, get in shape, get the right degree, get in the right vocation, get the right things, that you'll have better prospects. I want you to have someone and be happy. I want you to have a better job and do better. I want you to have better and be better. I don't want you to become someone that you're not. And that's why I'm telling you there is a way to do it. This is the way I believe you can do it. Good luck and Godspeed.